Awesome group. Lots of familiar faces. Even Howie. Even Howie.
Yes.
Good afternoon. As you're aware, we had our second meeting of the Governor's Task Force on Elections today, and we had 22 proposals that were offered. We moved 20 of those forward. I'll just run over a couple of them. The election officer certification, which we thought was very important. It's something that people have talked about, they have questions about, but it's moving also the certification, not just in the off-election year, but in election year as well. So we can compartmentalize that and make sure that everybody has their training that they need. Might bring new people on an election year, and so they would have that training. Election security standards, we've talked about that. There were several proposals that were moved forward on that to give the needed protection to election workers, election facilities and equipment, and proposals to recommend creating mechanisms to update security standards in the future. So we have several things that we're going to be working on between now and October, and we have this marvelous group behind me that's going to work on some of those proposals. I'd be happy to take questions, and also hopefully the people behind me will help to answer those questions. Howie?
Two things. First, technical. In terms of the 20 things, are we going to get copies of what these are? I mean, these are nice generic things, but can we actually find out what they say?
That will be for you from the governor's office, Howie.
Okay,
You
so
contact.
the check is in the mail, I know. Second question. We were told early on that these meetings had to be in secret. Do you believe that the public, that these meetings have to be in secret to have the frank discussions that you had, or is there any reason that we should be locked out of these?
I'm following the advice of the governor's office, so there again, pose that question to them.
I did, and they basically said, well, there'll be franker discussions. You're chairing the committee.
No, I'm vice chairing the committee. The governor is chairing the committee.
Okay. Why do you believe, you're somebody who's been in politics, you're some novice off the street, been there, done that. Is it necessary, I'll ask it two ways. A, is it necessary, and B, does it undermine public confidence in whatever you propose because it was done behind closed doors?
I don't believe that it does, Howie. We've been working on a lot of issues. We've had a lot of frank discussions between people from not just the sort of the election world, but people who are around that world. And we're trying to come up with some solutions. Some of it may be legislative, some of it may be best practices. So there may be a number of things. But it's been some frank and open discussions, and I think that's a good way to handle it.
Helen, I've heard that as much as almost 37% of election workers have quit their jobs out of fear because of the harassment and the death threats. How can you be sure that, or what sorts of things are you guys doing to make sure that you're not going to be getting mega ideologues into those positions with the intent of, just furthering their agenda?
I don't know that you'd ever stop that completely, but I think that there are enough people who are interested in doing the work as long as they are assured that they are going to be secure, safe and secure in doing their job. It is a public service for not only the permanent employees at an election office, but the additional employees that you hire at election time. And you want to make sure that they know that they're going to be secure and they're doing a good job, because this is an important thing to do.
How worried are you about the workforce at this time? Are you sure that we'll have the manpower there by the, at least by really almost a year from now?
I think we're working on it, as we do before every election. It takes a long time to put everything together for an election. If you ask the people who have done this for a number of years, as I have, but you always work towards that goal. We know that we have a presidential election next year, so we're working towards that goal.
Gabrielle, let me ask you a question as somebody who runs a county election department. See what happens, you become elected official. What's your thought in terms of what's been accomplished today, what needs to be done to make and ensure that elections are free, fair, secure, and where are we in terms of what needs to be done now?
That's primarily what we've been having conversation about. Every proposal that we have been discussing has either been talking about the expansion of security, expansion of transparency or security of the process. We've also been talking a lot about the resources and additional things we want to provide to support our elections departments and our recorder's offices.
How much of this is, maybe you want to, how much of this can require legislative approval versus things that can be done? How do I say it? We have a governor who loves executive orders. How much of this is going to require legislative action?
I think there's going to be a good deal of it's going to require that, but we still have a few months to work on that, so we come up with a good plan to present to the legislature. And something that one of the things that we've discussed through every one of these proposals, this is bipartisan support. Do we think that this is going to give us bipartisan support in what we're trying to put forward?
Can I hop in with one? I'm Stacy Barchinger with the Arizona Republic, for those who I don't know. Back to Howie's question about transparency. We are in a universe where there's so much distrust in elections, right? Why not live stream the discussions, the bipartisan discussions that y'all are having, so people can tune in and see the bipartisanship, see what's happening?
There again, that was a decision by the governor's office. We've been doing our work, and we've done it in working groups. We've not met in person, we're meeting by Zoom, so we're all over the place.
So do you agree with the governor's decision to do it this way?
I think the way we started this out, yes, I do.
Can you expound on that, or?
Better yet, wait, just wait a second. Let me follow up on, in terms, that's the way we started out. Is there going to come a point where these meetings will become public when you start doing actual voting?
Could be. I don't know at this point. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to expand on that point, and it touches on sort of what we were talking about earlier, whether some of these will be legislative solutions or we'll see them via some other method, the Secretary of State, the EPM. For the legislative pieces specifically, there will be a chance for the public to weigh in on these as they go through the legislative process. They'll run through committee. We'll hear them in caucus. They'll go up on the floor, potentially, some of them. So there will be plenty of time for the public to get a good look at these and weigh in as well.
And who are you, please?
I'm Representative Laura Tarek.
Secretary Fontes, how do you feel about the transparency here?
Thank you. Well, if there's anything folks should understand, it's that, Helen and I weren't always the best of friends, but we've spent a lot of time together now. And everybody here is working for the best results that we can get. And while I'm a big fan of transparency almost all the time, sometimes you've just got to have those hardscrabble discussions among folks when you're talking about what you think might or might not get through the legislature and why. Some of those opinions, you just hold them closer, but among trusted professionals, we've got to have those open and frank discussions. Now, we're not actually creating legislation at this time. We're not actually proposing anything that's going to go in the elections procedures manual at this time. We're working through this process. And while some of us have different opinions on what should be transparent and what shouldn't be transparent, and I can appreciate, the nature of the inquiry here, the bottom line is this. We're all working from a variety of different political parties and spaces across election administration. I mean, we've got folks, heck, just the fact that me and Helen are standing here together, again, that's kind of a big deal. So it's not just a question of trust us. It's a question of where are we at in the process. We're very, very early in this. We've got down to 20 proposals. They're going to be coming forward. the deliberative process in the legislature. Senator Bennett and Representative Tarek are going to be taking care of a lot of those things. So I'm a willing and happy participant in this process, and I think the way the governor's office has set this up is fine the way it is now. And I support it, and I'm happy to serve.
Does anyone feel that this whole process might not even have an effect? People will still, whatever comes out of this, people will still feel that there is an election issue within Maricopa County, that all of this is for naught? And if you do believe that, or if you don't believe that, why?
Well, there's some people who still like anchovy on their pizzas like me, right? We're not always going to agree on everything, and they're not going to be able to convince other people of some things. But that doesn't mean we don't try. That doesn't mean we don't go through the long meetings that we've had, like the one today. It doesn't mean we don't have those deliberations. We have to try for the betterment of the state of Arizona, better systems for our citizens. And some people are just going to refuse to come along, and that's okay. That's their right as Americans. They can continue to be suspect and whatnot. Bottom line is, we're doing our level best together, and I'm proud to be part of this team.
And I think everybody in this group has worked very hard because they think it's important, because they think that they can make a difference and they can do something for the future of elections.
Ken, let me ask you a question.
Senator?
The opponent of Mr. Fincham in the Senate primary.
He's my opponent, I'm not his.
You know the politics of some of your GOP colleagues over there. I mean, heck, they probably see you as a flaming liberal, but we'll leave that aside. Can you sell, they want, well, you know some of what they want, you know, same-day voting, no early voting, hand counts and everything else, which I'm guessing is not where you're going here. Can you sell them on the idea that this will promote the election integrity that they so want?
Well, as Helen mentioned, and I think Representative Tarek, one of the first questions after any of the proposals we've been considering is, can this garner bipartisan support? And we know we're in a shared government, some call it divided. We've got narrow majorities by Republicans in the legislature, Democrat in the governor's office. I dealt with that when I was a Senate president years ago. And so, especially in this environment, you have to look practically and politically for things that can garner bipartisan support. And so, extremes on either side usually don't fall into that category. But we're working hard to find things that will be meaningful to Arizonans so that they can have confidence in elections, but that can also garner bipartisan support.
What has been some of the
Last
hot
question,
button,
that's the last question.
what has been some of the hot button issues that you guys have needed to debate the most, you know, in regards to this process?
Well, one of the hot button issues has been resources. I don't think we spend enough money on elections to make sure that they are the quality and kind of elections in Arizona. We've got counties that are strapped with all the other things that counties have to do. We've got the state strapped. We've got the Secretary of State's office doing their part. And so resources is one of the issues that is prominent on almost every issue that we talk about. The bipartisan support question is probably one of the hot button issues. Is this something that we could get bipartisan support on? So those are two I can think of. What are some others? Hot buttons.
Yeah, those are the two big ones.
Money and politics.
You can follow up with